Well, hello, writers. Welcome to episode number 291 of How Do You Write? I'm Rachael Herron. I am thrilled you are here with me today as I'm talking to Kerri Maher about how to find your community. And it was one of those delightful chats in which I found a little bit of my own community. She is wonderful. I love doing this show because I meet the coolest people. So you are going to enjoy that when we get to it. What has been going on around here? Well, I have been writing and having so much fun. I have chosen a word for this book, or maybe this book chose this word for me, but it's trust. And every day that I sit down to do this first draft, I am trusting. I'm just trusting. I'm trusting in the whole thing. I have done this often enough now that I know that any book can be revised. And that doesn't just go for me, that goes for you, my friend. There is no unsalvageable book. So, because I know that, because I have seen that over and over in my own life, and I've seen it over and over in my students' lives, you can trust me when I say that there is no unsalvageable book. You'll sometimes hear writers say, "Oh no, it just died on me." No, it didn't, sir. No, it did not die on you. You chose to let it die, which is absolutely valid. There are three and possibly a fourth, I haven't decided yet, books that are languishing in places where I will never pull them out. I know that that's not they're I wrote them too early, too long ago. I don't want to touch them. And that is fine. I've made that decision. Could I fix them? I know I could. I know I could. But for those books, for most of them, I've already done what I wanted to do with them. One of them I replotted and just rewrote from scratch, etc. Anyway, what am I saying with this? I am saying, because I am trusting, I'm just letting myself have fun. And something has clicked in my head with this word trust that I just get to have a good time. I'm just trying to have a good time on the page. And when it stops being a good time, I add something playful to it. I do something silly. And it's working and it's a ball. So I'm working on that. That's the Seven Miracles book. And I have heard from my editor. I'm sorry if there's some weird whine in the background. There's construction going on downstairs and I can't do anything about it. So that's what that is. I am about to get edits back on my memoir. She's had it a little bit of extra time. So that just reminds me, I need to ask my copy editor for extra time. And that is what happens in the publishing industry because I will need time to revise the book. I am 100% terrified. I have completely, I may have mentioned this last week, but it's probably worse now, completely convinced myself that this is the worst book that I've ever written. And she will tell me that. The revision letter to me will say, give up and go work at Trader Joe's. The problem is New Zealand does not have Trader Joe's, so I don't know what I'm going to do. Also, I know because I've been through this, and if you haven't heard Eileen's episode of, 3 or 4 podcasts back on getting a revision letter, revision letters just explode your world. They explode your brain. Then you have to sift through the rubble to see what you're going to do with the book. And every book is fixable. Revision is just a set of tools. And I love this particular set of tools. So it will be fun. I am nervous about getting it. Very nervous about getting that revision letter, but that's okay. I am also excited to get it. I am going away this weekend on retreat, and I am curious to see if I will get the revision letter before I leave. It might be an ideal time, or it might ruin my time. So I actually don't know what I want, and I'm just going to let it happen. If I get the revision letter before I leave, fantastic. I will work on it while I'm gone. If I don't, I will just continue writing the novel, and either case is absolutely fine by me. The place I'm going on retreat for 4 days by myself is a place completely off of communication. I believe it has electricity, but it doesn't have Wi-Fi or even cell service. So I'm going to be by myself, just writing and reading and hopefully swimming in the sea. So by the time this goes up, I will be on the road to that by myself. Have I mentioned that I'm excited about this writing retreat? I have not been by myself for 2 years, people. 2 years as of this month. And I just can't wait. And my wife is also looking forward to having the house to herself. So that's going to be great. Let's see what else is going on. I just wanted to mention something that has been coming up in a couple of my classes. This realization that we all have to go through, that writing of any sort, especially writing books like memoirs or novels, is hard. It's just a lot of work. I am one of those people who really, really wishes I could pull some kind of lever and put some kind of token in a slot and have a book done in 2 weeks. I cannot. I never will be able to, but my heart still gets very frustrated that I can't write a book in 2 weeks, that I can't revise a book in 2 weeks, that it always takes longer than I want it to. Always, always, always. And it always takes more work. But what I've been seeing light up in people's faces recently is this realization that yes, it is hard. Yes, it takes a lot of work. But yes, if I sit down for a little bit of time, the thing I always say, a little bit of time here and there, and I am regular at doing that, the work gets done and progress is made and books are completed. So I just wanted to remind you that this is all eminently doable. And you are the one who can do it. Whether you are the kind of person who shows up regularly for smaller amounts of time, that's kind of the way I am. My ideal writing time is 2 hours or less a day. That's how my brain likes to write. And if I can get a couple thousand words, fantastic, I'm done for the day when I'm writing first draft words. Or you may be a person who is more of a burst writer, who needs to go away for a weekend or write all on a Saturday, but can't write during the week. Any of that is fine. The problem arises when you tell yourself you are one kind of writer and then you don't do that kind of writing. So if you're telling yourself you're a burst writer and you are unable to schedule any bursts of time to get your writing done, then you either need to schedule time away to write or start to play with working for 10 minutes at a time, 15 minutes at a time regularly in order to get the work done. Either way will work. A combination method is a fantastic way to go. That's what I'm doing this weekend. I usually only work 2 hours a day. I'm going to be working more on my retreat. And you can hear in my voice that I'm just excited about doing that. So it's all difficult. It's all a lot of work, but it can also all be fun in its own unique, special way. And all of it is doable. And there is help every single step of the way. One thing that writers, I think, do often, and I'm speaking for myself here, is we shoot ourselves in the foot by trying to learn everything that we're ever going to need to know before we know it. We don't need to do that. That will stress us out and slow us down. If you are writing the first draft of your novel, I would encourage you. Perhaps you have heard that query letters exist if you want to go the traditional publishing route. Now is not the time to stress out about your query letter. Stressing out about your query letter comes after you've done 4 or 5 revisions and passes of this book that you're working on, and it's as good as you can possibly make it. That's after you complete the first draft. It's nice to know that a query letter is out there, but you don't need to study it. You don't need to bash your head against the wall trying to figure all of this stuff out, marketing and promotion and cover design. And you don't need all of this stuff if you are not there yet. Let yourself come to each new roadblock that pops up in front of you and then go out and get help. There is so much free help out there. Google, go to YouTube for basically anything. Use some good discretion on your own part of what you decide to watch and what you don't watch, and then learn how to do it. I could rewire this house in New Zealand, given enough time and YouTube and fire extinguishers, but it could be done. All of the help is out there. Speaking of that help, and the reason I'm bringing this up is I am considering, I'm going to take a few months off between classes this time because of deadlines, but I also want to maybe play with doing a couple of online classes, some evergreen always up courses. I have the one course, How to Stop Stalling and Get Your Work Done, which I never talk about. I never remember to mention, but it's a pretty cheap course. I can't imagine I'm charging very much for it. How to Stop Stalling and Get Your Work Done. And you can always find that over at rachelherron.com. But I would also like to do one on, there's this class I teach at Stanford sometimes, and it's just a day-long course talking about the differences between traditional publishing and self-publishing and how to make the decision and what you're going to have to do in either case, what you do. So I'm going to put together that online class. I also might do one on story structure, and I might do one on revision tools. The reason I'm saying this is not to get you excited about it, because I always want to do everything in 2 weeks and it's not going to happen. But if you want to shoot me a message with a class that you would love to see from me, I'm looking for 1 to 2 hour classes broken up into 5 and 10 minute chunks of stuff I could teach. I like that format. I like offering that format. I like having things at different price points. I know that my classes, my intensive master classes, they are expensive and they fill up almost instantly, and they are not for everybody. But I would like to be able to offer classes at a lower rate to everyone, that of things that would be helpful. So if you want to shoot me a message anywhere that you can find me online, which is basically everywhere, do that. And I think that's all I wanted to share with you today. So let us jump into the interview with Kerri Maher. Let me give you a little bit of an intro for her. Kerri Maher is the author of The Girl in White Gloves, The Kennedy Debutante, and under the name Kerri Majors, This Is Not a Writing Manual, Notes for the Young Writer in the Real World. She holds an MFA from Columbia University and was a writing professor for many years. She now writes full-time, lives with her daughter and dog in a leafy suburb west of Boston, Massachusetts. The Paris Bookseller, which was delightful, by the way, is her most recent novel. And please enjoy this interview with Kerri. I know that you're going to. Well, I could not be more pleased to welcome my guest to the show. Hello, will you please say your name and your pronouns?
Oh, Kerri Maher, and she, her.
Thank you. Saying the pronouns is something brand new to the show. This is something I do in all my classes, but I'm just going to talk about it right now because I have heard Allie, what's her name? Allie Ward do it on the Ologies podcast. And I love that. What we're doing is normalizing giving pronouns for everybody around us. Thank you for jumping right in with both feet there. And thank you for being on the show. Can you please tell me, there's most people listen to this show, but for the people who are watching the show, and I will describe what is behind you right now. It is a beautiful painting and a Christmas tree because of course I'm always recording ahead of time. But can you tell us, let's start. Can you describe the painting for us and then tell us what is special about that?
Well, yes, and I'll hold up the other visual aids. So so here is the advanced copy of the novel. You can see the resemblance, right?
So gorgeous. What a cover.
Yeah. So, I'm really blessed at Berkeley, my publisher. My editor always always have a super fun conversation about every book cover before she goes to the art department and kind of talks about what the feel of the book is and, what she and I have thought about for cover ideas. I never try to go into it too married to a particular idea because you never know what's going to really work. And the designers there are just fabulous. We landed on this idea for the cover of the front of the bookstore, or a bookstore, like an evocative bookstore. And I was amazed when she came back a few weeks later and told me that the Berkeley was going to hire a painter.
So it is an original.
It is an original painting, and that I managed to purchase.
This is literally the coolest thing I've ever heard.
It's special.
Let me ask you how you felt though when they said they were going to hire a painter, because at least when it's like, some kind of stock photo or photo representation, you would be able to say, I don't like that color. Can you change that? Can you move the guy over there? When it's a painting.
Yeah.
So can you describe it in your own words? We're looking at a bookstore. It's light green. Yeah. There's
so it says, I don't know if you can tell this on the Zoom, but it says it's part of the words Shakespeare and Company up there. This is meant to be Sylvia Beach, and this is meant to be James Joyce walking away. And this, I have to say, the little scene stealer right here is her dog, Teddy, who is a real dog. She really had a little shop dog, and Teddy is in a few really important scenes in the novel. And I have a dog of my own. He might jingle around or try to get in my lap while we're talking. Teddy was sort of a terrier, but my dog is a Labradoodle.
So how did you feel when they showed you this painting?
Well, so there were sketches first,
Okay.
and so there was some back and forth between many different. It wasn't just me and the painter, right? Like,
Composition and
so,
color.
and in fact, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And positioning of the people, and actually, Teddy was a sort of a later addition to the. I said, what would happen if we put Teddy the dog in there? And I'm so glad I asked for him.
Who's your editor at Berkeley?
Kate Seaver. She's amazing.
Oh, I have been trying to work with her for a long time. She wanted my very first book and it went to somebody else. And I really respect her, but I've worked with Danielle Perez at Berkeley. And I remember Danielle once told me, like, just put a dog on the cover. Let's just get a dog on the cover somehow. People love a dog on the cover.
That's so funny. Well, hey, fingers crossed that Teddy sells some copies.
Exactly. I am sure that he will. All right. So on this show, we talk about writing process and how you get stuff done. You are prolific. You've got a body of work behind you, and you write under the name Kerri Maher as well. How do you get it all done? When, and where, and how?
This is an interesting question. So I've been writing since I was in 5th grade. I started my first unpublished novel in 5th grade. And I completed my first novel, my first completed novel after college. That novel was never published. But I always like to talk about like what a long process it really was for me, and how completely and totally worth the wait it was. When my first historical novel, my first novel sold to Kate at Berkeley, the Kennedy Debutante, it was just like that. It was just such a happy day.
Dreamy,
it was dreamy. It was really dreamy. But and people talk about the overnight success, and somebody I watched on YouTube for videos his name is Joe Wicks. I think a lot of people have been watching him during the pandemic. PE with Joe. He's English. Anyway, but he talks about my 10-year overnight success. So to me, it's like my 30-year-old overnight success, because it was like the Kennedy book did sell quickly, but it took a very long time for me to get there, and so anyway, but you asked really about my process. And so my process has, of course, changed over time. So with the Kennedy novel, at the time, my daughter was in preschool. And basically, she was only in there in a morning program. So I would drop her off at 9:00. I would come home, make a second pot of coffee, and be like, I have 2.5 hours before I have to pick her up again. And I just got very good at using those 2.5 hours to intensely write or research or rewrite or whatever it was I was doing. So I just got good at writing in those like bursts. And to this day, I still kind of write in 2 to 3 hour bursts. It's, and I tend to still write in the morning. My brain is just at its best then. And then in the afternoon, I deal with the other sort of work of being a writer, like answering emails and, Zooms and all the other fun things. But the writing, I do my best writing before lunch, I would say. Yeah.
How has the pandemic changed things for you, if it has at all?
Well, actually that learning to write that way or writing that way has served me well during the pandemic, because, in the first few months when everything initially shut down, and my daughter by this time was in 3rd grade, she's now in 5th. So
right,
that was
at the point where you started writing, it's how old she is.
Right, exactly. That was a what show, like for everybody else. And so I wasn't getting that much work done. However, because I could write in short bursts, and I knew that I could sit down and get the most out of an hour, I just tried to do that as much as I could. And I was very lucky, when last year she was in 4th grade, the schools here went back with one of these hybrid schedules and slowly scaled them up. So by November, she was in 5 days a week, half days. So that was great for my writing.
So you were kind of back to that preschool schedule when she was in there, and you knew how to do that.
Exactly.
So let's go back for a second to the 30-year overnight success. I love that. I have this theory about I don't want to say successful writers, but writers who maintain the course and keep going, that we have to be 2 things. We have to be incredibly stubborn and incredibly hopeful. Like we have to be these stubborn
Yes.
optimists.
Yes.
What do you think about that? And what did that look like over the course of those years of writing and rewriting? And
Well, for me, hope is not the thing with feathers.
yeah. What is hope to you?
Hope became something really hard to manage. I would finish a novel. So I have 5 unpublished novels on my hard drive and in my attic, I like to say. And so I wouldn't trade them. They are how I learned to write books. And when it came time for me to write the Kennedy Debutante and all the books that I've written since then, I have used everything that I've learned from those sort of apprentice novels, we might call them, to do the writing that I'm doing now. Some people spend 10 years writing one book. I spent 10 years writing 5 books, might have been more like 12 years.
I honestly think we learn more that way. What do you think about that?
Well, I think everyone's different. Have you written a few books that you feel like you wrote them and you're like, well, I learned a lot from that?
Oh yeah. My first 3 books. I have 3 books. I call it Under the Bed.
Yep.
Well, and since I've been writing and publishing, there's another couple of books that have just been pushed under there. I know that I have the skills now that I could pull them out, and I don't know if I want to.
Yeah, no, you couldn't pay me to pull those.
The early ones, out. Those first 3.
Yeah.
A shudder. No. There is actually I got my MFA at where did you got your MFA at where?
At Columbia.
Columbia, that's right. That's amazing. I got mine at Mills, and to my horror, my first 150 pages of a novel, which was never completed, is still in the library there. And I meant to steal it before we left California, just so it wouldn't be there. But it's ugh.
I'm from California.
Are you from where?
Yeah, I grew up mostly in Stockton, but I went to Berkeley. So and my parents are Bay Area people too. So I grew up with a lot of good Bay Area stuff.
And Berkeley and Mills are the sister schools. Mills goes to Berkeley for the medical and the library and all of that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Mills is based in Moraga, right?
No, that's St. Mary's. Mills is in Oakland.
Right. Okay.
Sorry. Smack dab
I haven't lived there in a long time. I always love going back.
Where are you now?
I'm outside of Boston in Massachusetts.
Well, that's gorgeous.
It is lovely, especially in the fall.
Yeah. And the winter, and you're coming into the holiday season. And I've only ever been in Boston around the holiday season, and that, I don't know, that's pretty special.
It is, with all the twinkly lights, especially if there's snow, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yes. The thing that we won't have for Christmas this year in New Zealand, which is fun. Okay. So back to writing. What is your biggest challenge when it comes to writing nowadays?
It really depends on the book, with the Paris Bookseller. So one of my biggest challenges with the Paris Bookseller was sort of knowing when to stop doing the research, because honest to goodness, when you're writing about the writers of the 20s, right? Like, and the 30s, the expat writers,
right? So
they themselves wrote so much, and so much has been written about them, that I really had to make some hard choices about what was going to be the most important things for me to read, and really internalize and absorb and take notes on and all that stuff, and when to kind of be like, okay, I've done enough, like to do a responsible job. I mean, I could have researched that book for 10 years and never gotten to my own. So for that book, that was one of the biggest challenges. And then I had to kind of get over this sort of like, oh my God, am I really going to put words in Ernest Hemingway's mouth? Like,
that's
really,
what I was
really
wondering.
Do that?
What was your intimidation level around all of that? Because mine would have been high.
Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 10, it was probably a 7, but it would have been an 11 had I not already written my first 2 historical novels. Because, with Kick Kennedy, I had to put words in like John F. Kennedy's mouth, and other, luminaries. And, one of my, going back to the 5 unpublished novels, I had this real moment when I embarked on that book. I was like, who am I to write about the Kennedys? Like, I'm just some housewife with 5 unpublished novels in her attic, right? Like, but I did get over it. And in fact, actually, and for those of you listening out there, this is one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten for this particular problem. 2 of my writing friends and colleagues who come from very different parts of my writing life and don't know each other or anything, they said literally the exact same thing to me within 2 weeks of each other. They said, I was talking about how intimidated I felt and how I was having trouble getting going. And they were like, but Kerri, it's your book, isn't it?
Oh, that's perfect.
Isn't
It's
it
no one else's
perfect?
book. It's not a
It's
Kennedy's.
no one else's.
It's
Correct.
yours. And you get to
Right.
do what the heck you want with it.
Correct. Right. So
That's
that
beautiful.
that mantra
Yeah.
has stood me in good stead.
For everything moving forward. That is a wonderful mantra for all of writing. What is your biggest joy when it comes to writing?
Oh, you mean like in the process?
Any part of writing.
Any part of writing. Well, so you know, I do always like revising. I taught writing for many years, and getting students to revise was like really hard.
Honestly say that when I was in grad school and in undergrad and in high, I never revised a damn thing. I didn't know how.
Right. So I mainly taught freshman composition, and I really took it as my duty, almost like a civic duty, to get these kids to rethink their own ideas.
Wow,
right?
That's big. That makes them a better human being.
That's what I thought. They really did not agree.
I believe that. I would not have agreed with you because, and plus I would have written it like, 4 hours before class, because that's how I did it. And I would have expected an A, and I wouldn't have had, I would have hated that.
Yeah. So I found ways of grading certain assignments based entirely not on the outcome, but on their engagement in the process. I was like, I want to see half of your first draft gone. Like, and if you don't cut half of your first draft, and it's not necessarily because you can do better, but I want you to try different.
Yes.
And they almost always, the ones who really embraced it and were like, okay, that's how I'm going to get a grade. I'll try. They always reluctantly said, well, yeah, I wouldn't have done it this way.
And they can see that it's better and it feels good. Oh, that was a very good duty to give to the world.
I don't even remember your original question. Oh, what is my favorite part of the process? Revising. Okay. So there's all the like sort of teacherly, stuff about revising. But the other reason I like revising is because I have the security of like, I've already written like 80,000 words. It's like, even if I do away with 40,000 of them, I've written them. And like, there's just something very comforting about those words, having written all those words already.
Oh, I love that. I 100% agree. Can you give us
what's your favorite part of the process?
Oh, revision, 100%.
Okay.
And it is also something that I teach in a masterclass, because all I wanted to learn, I think listeners have some of the listeners have heard this before, but I turned in my first book. I accidentally wrote it well, sold a 3-book contract. Second book.
Wow.
This was back in the day, right? When they were still giving 3-book contracts. And second book, I wrote the worst book that's ever happened. And my editor said, you're a great writer. I love all the writing in it, but there's no plot here. And I had to like go, this was after I had an MFA, years after I had an MFA. And I had to go away and I Googled, how do you write a book, story structure, and how do you revise a book? I would have paid anything for a revision class. So that's why I teach novel and memoir revision now. And I think maybe because I did have to think so hard about it and work so hard at it. And I got that satisfaction that you were just talking about of chopping something away, rethinking it, learning from what I had learned. So I'm smarter than I was when I wrote the first draft.
That's correct. Yes.
And it just felt so good. I just wrapped up my revision class, this particular session yesterday. And I had a couple of the revision students say, Rachel, you did say it was going to be really fun. And they're like, I thought it was going to be more fun. And I'm like, well, I think I said it was awesome, but it's still very hard. It's not all rainbows. It's definitely achy. But it's so, I don't know. I just find it so much more rewarding than the first draft.
It is definitely, fun. It is rarely fun.
Yeah. When it is fun, it's the most fun.
That is correct. It's like the most fun you ever have. Yes, that's correct. Yes, exactly. Yes. That is 100% true.
Figure out how to get that every single day. All right. I feel like you gave us a good craft tip already when you said, this is your book, but can you give us another craft tip of any sort? Uh-oh, you froze. Are you still there?
Oh, yes, I'm still here.
Oh, there. Perfect.
Ah,
You're
okay.
unfrozen. Perfect.
I'm
It just,
sorry. That was so
you
bizarre.
wobbled for a
Okay.
second. Oh no, I'm
Okay.
getting the signal that it's my internet. So it's
Oh,
not yours.
okay.
Sorry about that.
So I feel like everyone, very often people give the sort of stick with it advice, which we've sort of covered, right? Like you have to like persist, right?
Yeah.
I think an important corollary to that is find your people.
Tell me more about this. I could not agree more.
So take a class.
Mhm.
Put up a poster, say, I'm starting a writing group. Is anyone else out there working on a novel? Want to meet at the Starbucks although all the Starbucks in my neighborhood are suddenly closing at 1:00, but you know what I mean? Like,
One in the
let's meet on
afternoon for
everybody's
Starbucks?
patio.
Wow.
I know, it's very strange. Or, let's meet on everybody's patio at 4:00, the first Wednesday of every month or whatever. So it is so important to find your people, because it is your people, other people who write and really understand what it means to have to chop 40,000 of your 80,000 words, who know how to write a novel and have story structure and write dialogue, whatever your weak points are. And also, and not just point out your weak points, but also tell you your strengths, right? Yeah. And commiserate when the going gets tough. The writing life is full of no. There is significantly more no in this life than yes.
I'm going to go like 95-5, really.
Yeah. Yep. Even once you're published.
Oh yeah. That's what I'm talking. Post-published. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, okay. So leading up to it might be 98-2.
Might be worse. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, it really is, it's not just that you need to have a thick skin, right? It's that you need to know who to call when you need someone to pick you up and dust you off.
Exactly. I don't think we get that thick skin without that. Honestly, I remember my very first, it wasn't even a bad review. It was an ambivalent review from PW, but it happened to be my first, like big review.
Yeah.
And I just remember calling my best writing friend and she answered the phone and she thought someone was dead because the way I couldn't speak. But the way we develop that thick skin is talking about it with people who can understand. And also, I don't know if how you feel about this, but I feel like whining about writing, nobody wants to hear it except for other writers. Correct, other writers want to hear the whining. Our wives, our husbands, we have a pretty cushy job. I'm sitting on my butt making stuff up.
Yes, there is that. When people tell me I can't even imagine writing a book, I'm like, well, I can't imagine using Excel.
Good answer.
I'm using all my best material with you, Rachel. I'm never going to be able to do another interview again.
It's really good. You're making my face go bright red, and that's how I know that you're tickling me. So yes, so the people who are like, I want to find community, but where else can I find it? So I recommend Meetup. I mean, you can put the post up there.
Yes, good point. Yep.
You could, what else can we do? We can put a post up, but you can put up one of those posters at the local cafe.
Yes. And I really recommend taking a class, Gotham, in New York City, Gotham Writers Workshop, and in Boston, Grub Street Writers Workshop have all gone online. They have, that's one of the gifts of the pandemic, is that great content has gone online. And so you can take a writing class and get feedback from writers just like me and Rachel who are teaching the class, and also your peers. And so this is the thing though about taking the class. Do not go into it just for the feedback of the teacher. Go into it with an eye toward the classmates you want to keep in touch with.
That's the biggest part.
Continue exchanging work with. That is the most important part. The teacher is the least important part.
Exactly.
It's the classmates, and you'll probably need to take more than one class in order to find. I mean, if you find like 2 or 3 people in one class, that's a lot. If you find one, I would say that's money well spent. And then the two of you can form your own writers group.
Yes. You only need to find those 1 or 2 people. But I will say, for everybody listening, it is just hard to do this as an adult. Like before we got on, I was saying to you that I've just moved to New Zealand. I took a pants making class, pattern making for trousers class on Saturday. One, because I like to sew. And then I absolutely sewed the pants backwards and into a skirt. So that didn't go well. But I went with the object of making one friend And his name is Leon. And we have just signed up to take a drawing class. And I'm just signing up because I want to sit next to Leon and we're, be the bad kids in the class. And this is how we make friends. So when you're in Grub Street or when you're in an online class, at the end of this class or in the middle of this class, I would recommend to people say, like, you can be really honest and say, I'm very nervous about doing this, but can I have your phone number? Can I text you with my accountability? Yes. I'm not writing as much as I want. Would you like to work together?
Yep.
And it's terrifying.
100%. It can be. It's true. Yeah. I mean, so you and I both went to MFA programs. And so I have a handful of people from my MFA program that I'm in good touch with. Although I have to say, now that I'm in the world of historical fiction, also going to conferences is another great way to do it.
Best.
Yeah. So, and if you happen to be writing historical fiction out there, join the Historical Novel Society, the HNS. They have a conference every year, although every other year it's in the UK. So start with the US one. Although if you are in New Zealand, maybe you want to go to the UK one. I'm not sure where our audience is. So anyway, both and. Yeah. And that conference is for published writers as well as aspiring writers. And there are tons of workshops you will meet. It is, again, money very, very well spent to find your people.
My best friends are my writing friends, and I found them in writing organizations and not in my MFA. Yep. I have one or two people that I'm kind of in loose contact with from my MFA, but I think we all scattered to the winds out of, sheer horror when we graduated. Like, what do we do next? And
Well, also, I mean, I took my MFA in a very different time of my life. I was in my 20s. Me too. It was just different. I am not in my 20s anymore.
No, me neither. No. Okay. May I ask you, what thing in your life affects your writing in a surprising way?
Oh my goodness. In a surprising way. Probably, well, I don't know about surprising. I know myself so well by now, but probably, I am sort of like constantly surprised. You know what it is? I'll tell you what it is.
Tell me.
I have to think about this. I was thinking it's definitely health and wellness related. Yeah. I generally am a very healthy eater. I try to get a decent amount of exercise. It's meditation.
Oh, isn't that annoying? Me too. That's my answer.
I know I am in, meditation is a practice.
Yeah.
Writing is the one practice that I have really been the most disciplined about in my life. And in some ways, it's almost like, that's all I got for discipline.
Me too.
But when I have kind of meditated, even just 10 or 15 minutes, a few times a week, I'm just more in tune with my creative self, with my thoughts, and I'm able to kind of drop into that part of me a little bit better and faster. Anyway,
I love meditation. I try to do 10 minutes a day, but I'm doing it kind of the 10%. Do you ever listen to 10% Happier or
yes, I have it. I know of it. I don't listen.
Dan, what's his name? I think he says like more days than not. I ask myself, am I doing it more days than not? So I love hearing about others' practice. What kind of meditation are you doing? Are you watching your breath? Are you sitting on a beanbag? What are you doing?
My brain is way too noisy for anything other than guided meditation.
Guided meditation is the best. What do you like?
So there's an app that was the first app I ever downloaded, recommended to me by my therapist. And it is still my favorite. And it's called Buddhify.
I've never heard of that one.
Buddhify. Yeah. And when I downloaded it, it was like $6 and you got all these different meditations and sort of subdivided by type.
Yeah.
And, varying lengths, everything from 3-minute quick and dirties to 25-minute, kindness, loving kindness, kind of the longer ones. And I have found them to be terrific. And, there are certain voices that I could listen to all the live long day. But I would love to branch out to Headspace. I've heard is really terrific. Who do you use?
There are 3 that I really like, and now I'm going to add Buddhify to try it. I like 10% Happier. These are also, I think all of these are monthly subscriptions now. So you kind of, but what I would recommend people do if they've never tried any of them, they all have those free samples. You could probably get 2 weeks on each and move your way through Buddhify, and then 10% Happier, which I love. Calm People really
Yes,
love that one.
people love calm.
And they love that one for the sleep meditations. Apparently their sleep stories are real good. And then the other one is, oh, why have I just lost it? Oh, Headspace and Insight Timer.
Yes,
The app Insight Timer has, I think that one might be all the way free. And I
that
think that
one
has a bunch of
isn't that
guided.
is that maybe even native to Apple
No,
products?
because I am an Android person.
Oh, okay.
And I have it. And it's really nice to have the timer on there too. But I
Yeah,
love what you're saying about your brain being too loud. I feel
it's
like
way
that
too loud.
may be a quality of writers, is that our brains are often loud. And that's why I didn't meditate for the longest time, because I thought I needed to make my brain quiet. And that is not what we're
Right.
doing in
That's
meditation.
right. Yes, everyone who's never tried it and is avoiding it for this reason, you don't actually need to turn your brain off. That's
In
the
fact, you
beauty
can't.
of it.
No one can. That's maybe
Right.
the Buddha could for a few seconds at a time.
Right. Right.
But
Exactly.
the rest of us, we're just trying to focus our brain. And they're just like, I always think about it very secularly. It's just a little push up for your brain.
Yep.
Every time you get distracted in meditation and come back to what you're thinking about, it's a tiny little push up. And that directly influences how we write.
Yes.
So I love that you said that.
All of that is true.
Okay, now you and I are BFFs and writing community.
100%. We are becoming critique partners.
We are simpatico. Exactly. You're watching this happen in real time, people. This is how it's done. This is why I have a show.
This is actually but actually that is true, because
Yeah.
this is what happens to people at conferences.
Yes.
Like you
in
like
the
fall
bathroom.
in the bathroom or waiting in line for lunch.
Yes,
like
yes.
You start like shooting the what with whoever's standing
Yeah.
next to you, and you discover that you have all this great stuff in common.
Yeah. And three out of the 5 people you talk to, they're very nice. And then 2 out of the 5 people, you're like, I need your number. We're,
Right.
come stay at my house the next time you're in California. I have
Exactly.
a guest bed right here in New Zealand, Kerri. Seriously, the borders will open soon. Come visit. I'm not even kidding.
Well, so Paris Bookseller is actually getting an Australian and New Zealand edition with a different cover. I wish I had something to show you with it on there. It's a totally
send it to me when you
cover.
get it. I want to see it. Oh, and
Well,
I will
I
look
can
for it in the
email.
bookstore, and I will face it out, and I will tag you on Instagram with it.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. You probably can look
that'd
it
be
up
awesome.
already on Amazon.
I will look it up, but I will also just go to the bookstore and make sure that they have it, because I've already made friends with booksellers here. That was like one of the first things I did. So I will have them make sure it's on stock and faced out.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. Speaking of books, what is the best book that you have read recently, and why did you love it?
Oh, it's hard to pick just one. And
I know. Well, then give us a couple.
And I'm going to give you audiobook examples.
Great.
Because all of my pleasure reading actually takes place on audiobook.
I have so many Audible credits right now I need to use, so this is useful for me.
Yeah. So all right. So one of the first ones that comes to mind is The Women of Chateau, Lafayette by Stephanie Dray.
Okay.
She's also published by Berkeley, although she has a different editor than I do. It is a tremendous book, and I'm not going to lie, it's long.
I love that.
But it was a pleasure to listen to. I mean, it took a while. I mean, I listened on all my walks with my dog as my primary form of exercise. And so it was just, it's 3 women narrators, one of whom is Adrienne Lafayette during the American and then the French Revolution.
Ooh, that Lafayette.
Exactly. Yes, that Lafayette, America's favorite fighting Frenchman.
Thank you.
His wife.
It was going through my head.
Right.
Didn't even know he had a wife.
A long-suffering one.
I bet.
Yeah, but they had a real partnership. I mean, Stephanie is an incredible researcher. And so I just learned so much, not just about Adrienne and the Lafayette family and sort of the trials and tribulations and joys and all the things. But then the other 2 narrators were during World War I and World War II. And so
that's ambitious.
Yes, it is. And it works. It just works beautifully. And it's really compelling and great. I just can't recommend it highly enough.
Awesome.
Where do I go from there? Another book that I read, it was a little while back, but it always comes to mind as a favorite recent read is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell.
Everybody keeps recommending that one to me.
I also listened to it, and I don't remember the name of the woman who read it, but she's British, and she's got this lovely accent and this rich, resonant voice, and I could listen to her forever. read the phone book. And she read it. Hamnet is a beautifully written lyrical literary novel. And you really get that from the reading also, like, that's terrific. And then for maybe a little spot of fun, and which isn't to say that it's not also, it is also, this next novel is also beautifully written and very poignant, but it's a different kind of book. It's The Guncle by Stephen Rowley.
Stephen Rowley is I just love his writing, and I haven't read that one yet. He's been on the show.
Well, so he reads the book. He reads the audiobook.
I have to get that.
Yeah, I was not so sure. Like, I was like, oh, really? Within 5 minutes, I was like, this is a great decision. I mean, he's a gifted reader, you know, and I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and there are some audiobooks I was like, oh no, this reader is not, I can't, I'm not sure I can finish.
I won't finish if it's really bothering me. I can't do it.
I have to say that is rare these days. I mean, there are so many gifted actors and actresses who are out there doing this work. You know, it's rare, but Stephen hits it out of the park, and it's really fun to listen to a book that's read by the writer.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay. And that's a nice segue into your own book, because we've got the queer fiction, putting that together here. Could you please see? Well done. Well done. Could you please tell us about the Paris Bookseller? Give us your log line and tell us about it.
So the Paris Bookseller is set at, you know, probably the world's most famous independent bookstore, Shakespeare and Company, Paris. And many people have been to the current Shakespeare and Company in Paris, which is a lovely place, but it is not the original.
I always thought it was the original.
It is very much an homage to the original, but that store opened in 1953, and it was opened by a different American named George Whitman, and originally it was called Le Mistral. And Sylvia Beach, the owner of the original Shakespeare and Company bookstore, was a regular customer of his, because
who knew?
Well, exactly. So anyway, long story short, the original Shakespeare and Company was owned and operated and founded by an American woman named Sylvia Beach, who is wearing this lovely purple suit on my cover. And it like instantly became the home of the lost generation expat community. You know, Ernest Hemingway was a lifelong friend of hers. You know, every famous writer from the 20s and 30s didn't just like go to Shakespeare and Company. They spent lots of time there. It was really one of these, like, if you were a writer and you wanted to find your people, you would go to Shakespeare and Company.
Oh, I have goosebumps just thinking about it.
So it was really a special place. And as if that wasn't enough, she also published the very first edition of James Joyce's Ulysses in 1922. So my book is coming out right around the 100th anniversary of her edition of Ulysses. So that's really exciting.
Wow. I have still never managed to get through that damn book.
It's a tough one. But what's particularly amazing about her publication of Ulysses is she offered to do it after it had been convicted of obscenity and became a banned book in a big trial in New York in 1921. So she publishes it from France, right? And then she has to figure out a way to ship it back into the United States, as I always like to say, alongside all the illegal liquor.
Yes.
Because it's prohibition. So here's this illegal book traveling alongside, you know, illegal liquor.
I want both of those things.
Right? I mean, it's the 20s. How can we not love the 20s? Such a glamorous time.
And then tell us a little bit more about her and what happens in this book.
So I think one of the I discovered her story because way back in college, I read her own memoir, which is really a slim little volume. It's called Shakespeare and Company. I highly recommend it. It is a charming read. And that was when I first learned about the fact that she was the one who ran Shakespeare and Company and published Ulysses. And I just kind of like filed it away under good to know, right? Like, and so fast forward, you know, 2 decades, and I'm kind of amazed that didn't occur to me sooner that I could write about her. But, you know, to our earlier conversation, I'm actually really glad that I wrote 2 previous novels before this one, because I think this was especially daunting
Oh, yeah.
to try as a
Yeah.
first go at historical fiction. But regardless, so one of the interesting things in my research that I did for the book, because this isn't really clear, so clear from her memoir, is that Shakespeare and Company in some ways was really two stores. Shakespeare and Company was the only English language bookstore and lending library in all of Paris for a long time. So it was really one of its kind. But across the street was La Maison des Amis de Livres, which is the House of the Friends of Books, which had been open since 1915, and it was owned and founded by a French woman named Adrienne Monnier. And Adrienne and her store were really Sylvia's inspiration for opening Shakespeare and Company. And they meet in 1917, which is when my novel opens, and they do quickly become a couple. And
is this really historically accurate, or are you?
It is historically accurate.
Oh, yes. It's delicious.
Yes, it is delicious. And they have a remarkable, it's not just a romantic relationship, right? It is a deep, deep, deep friendship, based on a mutual love of books and writers and Paris and, all the yummy things.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of which, Adrienne was a great gourmet. Like, that was one of the things she was known for. In addition to being, this amazing first woman bookseller in France, one of the first women booksellers in France, she was known for being a great gourmet cook. So I had, of course, I had to add some, like yummy, delicious things.
Oh, I want to go to one of their parties.
I know, right? That would be a great thing for somebody, a better cook than I am, to recreate. I enjoy cooking, but French cooking is really impressive.
Yeah. So where can this book be bought?
This book will be able to be bought everywhere books are sold. Or I'm saying this before it actually releases, as if it's in the future. But it'll be
out by the time this is, yeah.
Right. So it will be an ebook, it will be an audio book, it will be a hardback. And you can buy it from your local independent bookstore. You can buy it from any one of the big box retailers. You can download it from Audible. You'll be able to download it from Libro FM.
You'll be able to get it in Australia and New Zealand.
Wherever books are sold in Australia and New Zealand. But also, if you do live in the States and you would like a signed copy, Wellesley Books is my local.
Oh.
And I will sign as many books as are requested.
That's fabulous. I love that you are doing that. And that will be a quick Google search away for anybody who would like a signed book. Kerri, this has been fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It really has been fabulous.
Much for being on the show. I really appreciate writing with you, and I want to do it again in the future.
I hope we can do that. And thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.